Hey everyone, welcome to Flip Your Life.
I'm your host, Michael Haberman, and today I'm really excited to be joined by real estate investor Rob DiMontova. Now, in most of our episodes so far, we've talked with full-time investors and we've explored how they've made the decision to leave their 9-to-5 career. Well, Rob provides a little bit of a different perspective because it sounds great, but it's not an easy transition to make. And Rob is still balancing both, investing in real estate while maintaining his full-time job in finance. So we're going to dig into how Rob balances that and whether he'll ultimately take the plunge and give up the W-2 safety net. Rob, welcome. Good to have you here.
Yeah, good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me. Really excited.
Yeah. So we have a lot to cover, but I always like to just start with level setting and letting people know what your real estate history is, what you currently own, what you flipped, wholesaling, anything else that you're involved in. Give us a little flavor of that.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the rental and portfolio side, definitely a little bit on the lighter side, probably from a lot of other investors that you might have chatted with. Actually only own one duplex at the moment from a rental perspective. So I've got 2 units there. And funny enough, they're out in Wisconsin and I've never seen them. Never stepped foot in them. I have a property management company out there managing them for me. We can definitely get into that, and I can tell you all the fun ins and outs of the virtual side of managing a property. And yeah, I've been flipping and wholesaling for about the past 3 years now, and have a decent number of those under my belt over the past 3 years. And obviously that's started to get a bit more steady in the past year and a half or so. So I've been in the real estate game and wholesaling and flipping over the past, it's about 3 years now. And I'd say I've done about 10 flips, got a couple active right now, and 25 or so wholesales.
Very nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So about 10 flips, 25 wholesales, 1 rental. So tell us about that. Tell us how you ended up buying a property in Wisconsin that you've never been in.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like, that's what everyone says, like, why Wisconsin, right? And in all honesty, there's one answer. And I started following an investor out of California on Instagram a number of years ago. And I had never thought of a virtual rental, managing something from 1,000+ miles away. I came across this guy who is out in California and buys in the central part of the United States, and maybe more of your blue collar, working type cities. And started following him, really try to understand what he was doing, some of the markets he was in, and realized that what he was doing worked. And the price of a duplex out there, or really any property, was a lot, the barrier to entry was a lot lower than markets like New York. And you could get a property management company in there pretty much full time to manage and not have to really worry about it. So that was really the reason. Like, this guy kind of set me forward in that path. And, I've had that rental for about 3 years now.
So I'm always curious with people like in a high cost state like New York or California, and then they invest in sort of lower cost states like Wisconsin. By the way, I'm a Badger and my whole family is Badgers, so I don't think it's weird to invest in Wisconsin at all. But
Yeah.
I'm always curious. The entry price is lower, right? But then by the time you pay your property management company and when rent's being lower, does it cash flow in any significant way considering what your life costs in New York, or is it more an appreciation game?
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not going to get rich off of one single duplex. It will cash flow a few hundred a month for sure. And obviously you have the ups and the down months where you have to fix a vanity in the bathroom or plumbing leak or whatever, and you're kind of out on that month or so. But yeah, it cash flows. Again, you're not going to get rich off of it. And it's, the rents are lower. So the rent on each side, each unit is only about $800 to $900 a month. So it's bringing in less than $2,000. But again, the purchase price was a lot lower than, say, a duplex out here that might cost $300,000. Now, out here in New York or any other market, bigger market, you'll probably be able to rent each side of a duplex for plus, and you'll be able to cash flow a lot more, but that entry price is a lot steeper. So that's kind of how I guess you have to weigh that.
Yep. Yep. Good. Interesting. But it obviously works for you because I know we worked on trying to do a deal together where you would have actually quadrupled your holdings in Wisconsin, which kind of fell apart at the last minute. I think it was like 4 more duplexes you were going to buy. Yeah. Not to rehash that, but I think it's interesting. Tell us just quickly about that and what you learned from that experience, because I always, smart investors always say, well, in anything, right? You learn from your failures. So tell us just quickly a summary of what happened there and then what you learned from that.
Yeah, that was the craziest deal that I've ever had that fell apart. And usually, right, hopefully we don't have many deals that fall apart, but was in the process of acquiring 4 more duplexes in the same area, Racine, Wisconsin, a little bit south of Milwaukee. And I was doing some mailing campaigns out there. I got in touch with an investor. He definitely was, he was a seasoned investor. He knew what he was doing. I think he had 70 or so properties out there that he was managing. And he was looking to retire. So he was looking to sell them. We agreed on a decent price, about $100,000 on average per duplex. So I think a package was, 400 or something thousand to buy all 4 of these duplexes. And it would have been a really good cash flow deal for me. And like you said, it would have quadrupled my portfolio at the time. And you were helping me out on this one from a lending perspective. So you know the story. Literally, I think the guy started to chat with some realtors and understood that he could get more for these properties than what we agreed on. And no joke, literally the morning of closing, he emailed title and said, I'm not closing these. And, basically good luck. So it was definitely a disappointment. Morning of closing, the 12th hour, everyone's ready to go. We got our lending set up, I'm about to send the wire and, he kind of just pulls the rug from under us. So yeah, unfortunately that one fell through. I lost money. I had money in appraisals, inspections, all that. So definitely lost some money on that deal. And it was disappointing for a little while, but at the end of the day, I realized it probably wouldn't be worth going after him for anything because number one, it would take a while. And number two, I think the guy had some money, so he might have just tried to string me along a little bit. But yeah, from what I learned there, it's, nothing is certain until closing happens, the check clears, the keys are in your hand, whatever you want to call it. And, I definitely learned I probably could have been, hindsight, obviously 2020, probably could have been a bit more connected with the seller, understood what his, ultimate goal was and what his issues were, and maybe even settled something in between so we could still acquire the properties. But yeah, he just pulled the rug out literally the morning of closing. So that one was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I remember it well. It was like, what my older brother taught me when I started in this business: don't start counting on your commission until the HUDs are signed and the deal is closed, right?
That's absolutely right.
But I do think what you said is interesting in that, a lot of the guests on this podcast, some of the really active investors. And I think sometimes people think of investors as like, almost vultures and taking advantage of people. But you said something interesting, which is, I should have been more attuned to what his needs are, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that's an interesting way to get a deal done. Like what are they looking for? And not just what am I looking for, right? Sure. So interesting. But I guess what that tells us is the next question. So you like the flipping, you like the wholesaling, but the goal is certainly to build up the rental portfolio as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that'll be the security, right? Long term, that'll be the play down the road for, ultimately retirement and having a little bit more of that passive income coming in. I mean, again, the duplex I have by no means am I ever going to get rich off of that cash flow or that appreciation. But down the road, definitely going to look to, get back into that rental space and start more actively looking for acquiring rental properties. And, I've got a really good group of guys within the New York market that, we're actively partnering on deals. We chat, all of them. And they have really good successes in New York. So, the thing there is, I might even start transitioning into New York where that cash flow might be a little bit better. And, the properties are probably a bit more, they'll probably appreciate a bit more as well in a market like New York. So,
Yeah, interesting. Cool. I as I said before, I always find that interesting, the cost of entry versus, the end return and what you make. But I also like what you said there about thinking about this as the retirement plan, right? And so, I invest a little bit. My properties are cash flowing, but I always say my real goal is, hopefully I'm getting older. I used to say 20 years, but maybe 10, 15 years from now, that property, the mortgage is paid off and it's worth twice what I paid for it. And, that's where I see the real value in real estate. So Rob, we're not going to get into details about it, obviously, but you work from home remotely, right? In a finance job. It's a full-time job, right? So tell us a little bit about that. And you have 2 little kids as well, right? A wife, 2 little kids. And essentially 2 jobs. Tell us about that. How do you make that all work?
Yeah, it's definitely a fun balancing act. Fun, interesting, challenging at times for sure. So I would say when I first got into the investing space, the wholesaling, flipping, rentals, I was already 10 years or so into my what I'll call corporate career, right? So I went to the traditional university, got my 4-year degree, and just like everyone tells you should do, landed a job right out of college working in corporate finance. So again, before I started real estate, I already had 10 years in the corporate finance realm, and I'm still doing that today. So the thing for me, and especially like you said, Mike, like I've got 2 young kids. My son's 5, my daughter's 3, and wife. We just built a house. So for me, the corporate life is, as unfortunate as it might be, it's definitely a bit of a security for me. And they always say, right, they've got the golden handcuffs or the corporate handcuffs on you. And for 10 years, I had already kind of been used to that that lifestyle and that consistent paycheck and those decent benefits. So when I first started out in real estate investing, it was so scary. Like I'm not making any money. I can't just up and quit my job. I've got a family to support. So yeah, up to this point, I've been managing both of them. And like you mentioned, I work remotely. I do have a fairly flexible job where they'll allow me the flexibility that I need to also work on the real estate deals that I am working on. But yeah, sometimes it is tough. At first, that balancing act was super tough. My kids were a bit younger at the time. It was, I was becoming a new parent, learning about that, but then also trying to start my business on the real estate side. And at that time, I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I needed to spend more time on the real estate side of things so that I can get that up and running. And, my head was spinning. It was like, how am I going to do this? Is it silly for me to start trying to get into real estate at this time? Should I quit my corporate job and just go all in like a lot of folks do? And a lot of the guys that I work with, they have done, that's what they know. But for me, it just, I wasn't ready. And obviously I'm still working my 9-to-5 W-2. And for me, it's the security of having that consistent paycheck so I can support my family. But ultimately, I definitely want to transition full time to investing. And, when that point comes, I'll definitely pull the trigger. But the thing for me, the really important thing is having that flexible job where I can, take a lunch and go see a house, go on an appointment, or I've got an hour here, an hour there to follow up on leads. And I've gotten to the point where, again, I've got about 3 years in this, so I would think I know a little bit more than what I did 3 years ago when I first started. So I can be a lot more efficient with lead flow, lead follow-ups, booking those appointments, knowing which ones I should go on, and trying to just manage everything a little bit more efficiently and remotely, honestly, even if I'm doing deals in New York.
So a couple of hubs. So your current company, they're aware that you do the real estate investing?
They are aware. They know that it's I would say it's not like a company-wide thing that they post and say,
Right.
"Hey, Rob's a real estate investor," but my core team knows, and
So I
they
guess
know
what I'm
it's
getting at
yeah.
is like, I think what's important is like, is the culture there? Like they don't really care as much about your hours as long as the work is getting done and you're available when you need to be available for meetings, right? So I think,
Mhm.
for people listening, one of the things is like, it does kind of depend on both the culture of the company you're working at, but also your role at the company, right? So I think if you're
Sure.
working on a customer service line where you have to be on 9 to 5 just answering calls, that's going to be
Mhm.
a little more difficult as opposed to not to put words in your mouth, but maybe I have a report that has to be done. It has to be done by 9 tomorrow morning. If I stay up till 11 o'clock at night to do it, they don't care as long as it's ready at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. No, that's 100% right. I'm not missing every single meeting that I need to attend. I'm not missing deadlines. I do have that flexibility. Sometimes I'm putting in early mornings, late nights when I can't sleep and I'm thinking about things. So yeah, it's that flexibility to get what I need to get done, whatever time I get it done. And it's not, I'm not answering that, having to answer those customer service calls, 9 to 5 for 8 straight hours. It's not like that. It's a little different.
Yeah. So I think it's important again for anyone listening, if you're trying to do this, just to make sure you're thinking about your situation in your current job and whether or not, it's going to fit. By the way, it might fit in a different way where you're doing your real estate from 5 to 9 if you can make that work, but different situation. So I wanted to ask, I mean, obviously the benefits of the W-2, you're getting a guaranteed paycheck, you're getting the benefits, I assume, right? Health benefits, maybe 401k, that other stuff. Are there other things sort of like structure? It forces you to be structured. It forces you to manage time. Things you learned in the corporate sector around systems and stuff that you sort of say like, I'm sticking it out a little bit longer, not just for the money, but like it's helping me be a better investor.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I haven't really thought about it from that angle before, but what I would say is anything I've learned in the corporate world over the past 13 years has only bettered me from a real estate stance. It's a completely different industry, business, whatever you want to call it, but it's the meat and potatoes of it, right? You're working for a business, you are communicating with people, you are required to get certain things done and hold yourself to a level of, not maybe not excellence, but a certain level that has only, again, helped me in the real estate world and apply some of those things to the business that I'm starting, the systems that I ultimately want to put in place or the processes, and just having that knowledge of how to talk to people really helps.
Yeah, I agree. That's my background, why we do Flip Your Life, right? I spent 20 plus years in more traditional corporate world before coming into this business. And I agree with you 100%. I think it's only made me better in this business, having worked in that corporate world. But all that said, the benefits, but you did say that you're, hoping to go full time in investing. Have you given yourself, I know so different people are different. Have you said by like the end of 2026 or the end of 2028 or when my kids are in high school, or you just sort of going, and when the time feels right, that it'll be right?
I think my timeline definitely got pushed. After that whole debacle that we talked about with the 4 duplexes falling apart, we actually started building our own personal house over the past year and a half, which we just moved into a couple months ago. So
Congrats.
at that point, it was okay. I need to shift my focus a little bit to making sure we get the house done. Number two, making sure I have the money to do it. So I think my timeline to get out of corporate got pushed back a little bit because of that. Nonetheless, though, everyone that I talk to, again, I keep referencing like this core group of really good guys that I've connected with in the New York real estate area. All of them do investing, flipping, wholesaling full time. They tell me that I'm crazy, that I have a 9 to 5, and that I just need to quit because I will make that money back when I am full time. For me, I think it's more so within probably the next, somewhere in the next 2 to 3 years. But what I need to do is, and I actually haven't done this yet, I need to look at that 2 to 3 year timeline, put a dollar amount to what I need to have, say, in the bank as a safety net for that. And then maybe some other things that might go along with that goal as well. It's not only money, but where do I want to be in my life? Do I want to make sure my kids are all in school and at a daycare at that time? So it's, I need to put those things in place and then just, chip away and work towards it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love hearing this because, listen, different people are different. Different people are comfortable. Our last episode, I think the last episode or 2 episodes ago with Greg Helbeck, who you know well. Greg went from a hockey player straight into being an investor. A totally different experience, but you have to know what's going to work for you and yourself and what makes you comfortable. So sort of 2 last questions. First question. So people listening, they're working the 9 to 5. They want to get into this. What's your advice to them to get started?
Yeah, I would say take action. They're probably going to hear that from, 9 out of 10 people that might be in the investing space, but just take action. Honestly, there's so much content that you can consume online, books that you can read, but that will only do so much. Take action. I got into this not knowing many people, not really knowing what I was going to do. And the other thing is, find someone that is already doing what you're doing and tag along with them. The amazing thing about the real estate industry, from at least what I've experienced so far, is the people that you meet who are doing the same thing, they are 110% willing to help you out. Coincidentally, when I sold my one of my houses a couple of years ago that I was living in, at the point I was ready, let's go. I want to start doing this. Coincidentally, I moved right across the street from another investor, Devin King, who you also know. He's been in the game for a while now here in New York. And, I started doing some marketing. I sent out letters that I literally printed in my own office, hand stuffed them, sent them out. And I started to get leads in that I had no idea what to do with. And I got this one lead in, didn't think it was anything. So was chatting with Devin and said, hey, you might be able to do something with this. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he was able to, come in, help me out. And we partnered on this wholesale. And that was the first one that I ever did. And we made a decent amount of money on it out of something that I thought was nothing. So again, just, find someone.
I agree with that. Take action, find someone. I find in this real estate investing network, and with the smaller investors that we deal with, I don't know about the big corporate investors, but the small investors, people just seem to love helping each other out and seeing how people, other people are successful. I think some of it is it comes full circle, right? It seems like you do something nice for an investor, at some point it comes back, but it's just a great community of investors. So take action and find someone to help you out. Last question we ask everyone. If you had to do something differently, what would it be?
Yeah, for me, that's pretty easy one. It's 100% would have started sooner. I've always, as far as I can remember, have been interested in real estate in some fashion, one way or another. It wasn't until 3 years ago that I actually started taking action and getting into the space. Again, hindsight's 2020. If I had started 6 years, 8 years ago, when a lot of other people did, the market wouldn't have been as competitive. The houses would have been a lot cheaper. I probably would have had a larger rental portfolio at this time and been probably doing more business than I am today. But it was just starting sooner. You just have to get into it. You want to do it. It's scary. Just take the leap and start working towards it.
Awesome. Great advice. Take action. Well, Rob, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure having you, talking about your investing and, balancing that W-2 with being a real estate investor, which I think a lot of people are doing. And hopefully we'll talk to you again in the not too distant future when you tell us that you took the plunge and moved into becoming a full-time investor. So thanks a lot, Rob. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time on Flip Your Life.